I just found out that there's a new version of an interesting plugin called Flatline. So let's immediately just take a closer look. Alright, Flatline 2 from Submission Audio is a complete music mastering plugin featuring a clipper, limiter, and the acclaimed hybrid intelligent maximizer. Whether it's post-production, music broadcast, or live sound, you can now master everything. That's a lot. And I remember this plugin from, the video that I made about it a little while ago. I'm not sure if I was that entertained about it, but I did learn a lot more in the meantime about, basically about clipping. And clipping is something very interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. It is now way more advanced. Like back then it was really more focused at clipping, if I remember correctly. I can't really find the old plugin anymore, and I don't like to watch my own videos. We're just going to take a look at it as if it's a new plugin with just a fresh view towards it. So it has a lot of interesting features. It can do both clipping and limiting, and there's a hybrid mode with the punch of clipping with the distortion resistance of limiting in an elegant, intelligent solution. Features envelope control, tailored charge times, multi-stage release, look ahead, and channel linking for both transient and sustained portions of the signal. This is actually a lot of professor stuff combined in one very simple thing. It also has metering built in now, so you can basically see that you don't really need to use plugins like this. It has 64 times oversampling, and that is like really, really important. Really cool to see that they've really improved the feature list and stuff. So I've got it over here. It's a very nice user interface. You know, it's a bit like how a clipper should look. If we play back audio as well, you will see the well-known blue background. And if we start clipping in this case, they basically copied FabFilter with that. But on the other hand, if they would make a completely different user interface, it wouldn't necessarily be easier to use that way. So yeah, we can do clipping, we can do a delta solo, listening to the differences. We have a threshold control, of course. We've got output gain, actually auto gain as well, because it works like a compressor. Like normally a limiter, you have to gain up your signal towards it. There's a gain knob in here. This one, there's a threshold in here, and with auto gain, it gains up the signal. And it actually makes sense to disable it in a plugin like this. Yeah, I know I can't make up my mind about auto gain. I love it, but the thing that I'm after is equal gain monitoring, not automatic gain compensation in whatever way. Let's just do a quick demo. We're listening to this. I now have the auto gain enabled, so it will automatically increase my output gain if I lower my threshold. So that means that shit gets louder, basically. I don't want that. I want to listen to the same volume, and then it's better to disable this, because then it's way more comfortable to just set up your plugin. You don't constantly have to adjust your volume control, because you're getting level bias, as I call it, or loudness bias, or whatever. Like whenever something gets louder, there's way more happening in our brain than just comparing two different signals together. Anyway, it can do clipping. Really cool and very difficult to get right, actually. So we've got hybrid mode. It really looks like the FabFilter interface, and this is actually worthy of a full tutorial and diving in deeper in here, because, you know, what does the color knob exactly do? Like the tooltip says, set maximizer deviation from linear gain reduction behavior. So this is probably the amount of clipping that you want to add or something. What I've personally noticed is that if it's at 0%, it's very clean. It sounds very, very linear, limiting. And if I turn it up a little bit more, it will start to crackle and clip a little bit more. So I don't know if it comes across on the YouTube codec. But it actually, it has a combined mode where you can use both the clipping and the limiting. And right now you also have a normal limiting mode. Actually, pretty simple user interface. Now, Plugins like these, and very much the clipping side of these plugins, of course, is very cool to use in mixing environments where you want to use it on a certain bus or certain sound design. Like, go ahead and do it. However, this is sold as a mastering plugin, and one of the things to realize is that it's not a big deal anymore. Like, there are only 2 genres right now that I know of where it's really important to hit very, very high LUFS targets, like -5 or -4, or I've seen -2 and -1 as well. And those genres are like, these are only genres that I work in and that I've noticed that clients still request me to clip the shit out of productions to get that loudness. It's electronic music, most of all more the dance, commercial type of music in the electronic side of things, and metal. I really see those 2 genres still choosing to be loud, and for them it doesn't really matter that it's get loudness compensated. It's a bit of a sauce, it's a bit of a tonal character or something that it gets. But for most other genres, I'm really happy to see that it's not about that loudness and that clipping anymore, and a plugin like this is basically, not needed. And I'm kind of happy about that, because for a lot of different music genres, clipping doesn't make it any more beautiful. That's my opinion. Anyway, hard clipping is something that is not that simple for a plugin to do. So I've got the famous plugin doctor over here, and I'm running a sine wave through Flatline right now. And as you can see, that sine wave is perfectly fine. It is at 438 hertz, and that's because I couldn't set it to 440. Weirdly enough. And I've just gained it a little bit down just to have a little bit of headroom. And this is, a perfect sine wave. And if we would output this sine wave through a DA converter and then convert it back through an AD converter, we would get the same sine wave. That's how PCM sampling works, and it basically works perfectly every single time. However, if we want to clip this signal in the box, look what will happen to my sine wave. My sine wave would get flat tops and bottoms. And this is a bit of a problem, because as long as we're staying in the box and as long as we're staying, within this signal, the computer can basically just, mark all these signals at the same value, and, the bits will all be the same, and it's all no problem at all. However, whenever this needs to be converted back to analog, we'll start to get into some problems. And the main problem is basically that our converters are not made to create this signal, because in order to create the signal, we basically need an infinite amount of sample rate. Like, we don't want to have 48 kilohertz, we want to have infinity. Because a signal like this, when we look at the harmonic spectrum of a signal like this, basically has infinite amount of harmonics. So signals like these are very difficult to deal with. An interesting video I made about this is an interview I did with a plugin developer that talks a lot about oversampling and filtering techniques. I'll link that video over here. It's easier to watch that video than have me explain this stuff all over again. So one of the artifacts that we can get from a clipped signal is in our DA converter. The DA converter will simply do whatever it's designed to do, and every DA converter gets designed differently, and they will all sound slightly different when you send such a signal to it. Another thing that will happen in the box is something called aliasing distortion. And I'm really overdoing it just to make it, more apparent and easier to look at it. But what we see here is, this is our original signal, and this is our first harmonic. And what we see is that if that harmonic touches our Nyquist frequency, the maximum frequency that we can sample, it will fold back into the signal back again down here. There are a lot of videos on YouTube about that. I'll actually link an interesting video, probably not from me, because I know somebody else, Dan Worrell, who can explain it better. I'll link that over here if I can find it. But what you see here is that you get some nasty foldback distortion. And because you're clipping, it's actually a lot. Like, most plugins don't look like this with aliasing distortion. So that is why we need to oversample a little bit. And oversampling is very cool because it takes away most of these nasty aliasing distortion, harmonics, foldback, whatevers. And it will probably make your sound a little bit more natural. However, if you do this, there is some filtering involved. And the filtering will actually cause overshoots. Again, it's not that simple to just accept this plugin as it is. It will cause overshoots. So if you're limiting to, for instance, -1 dB, big chance that actually your output signal is going to be higher than -1 dB. And we can definitely see this in our oscilloscope if we increase our frequency a little bit. You can clearly see that sometimes it really peaks higher than 1. What you need to do then is use the clip card, safe clipping, whatever, that does another round of clipping at the native sampling rate in order to capture those, here you can see it, capture those overshoots again. Anyway, on to the conclusion. Playing with clipping in digital audio, to me, is a bit like playing with fire. There is nothing wrong with playing with fire if you know what you're doing. There are people that actually made their job into playing with fire professionally and they never get hurt. And that's because they exactly know what they're doing and they exactly know what is going on. And I think the same thing is true for everything that has to do with clipping, maximizing, other type of stuff. There is a lot of stuff going on in the background. If you all understand it correctly, it is no problem to play with it. However, if you get overshoots or clipped samples in your audio or whatever, your sound can become unpredictable at a different listening environment, at phones, earbuds. Like, there is so much stuff out in the world that all have their own DA converter, all have their own filters, and usually it doesn't really matter. But in situations like these, things will become very unpredictable. And I don't want to play with an unpredictable fire. So yeah, if I come up with other resources to read about this or whatever, I'll make sure to put them in the description down below. And I'll also put a link to Flatline 2 in the description down below. It will probably be a direct link because I'm not affiliated with a shop that sells Flatline at this moment. I don't do direct affiliations. I only do affiliations through shops. And if you want to help the channel and want to use my affiliate link, make sure to check them out. Thomann and Sweetwater for all your hardware purchases and Plugin Boutique for your plugin purchases. And if you use one of these links when purchasing your next piece of equipment or software, a little bit of your purchase gets kicked back to me, but it's not costing you anything extra. So it's basically supporting this channel for free. Another way to support me is by becoming a channel member. You can do that by using the join button down below or using the link in the description down below. You get access to this playlist and of course a lot of other good stuff. Another way to support channels by watching more videos. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep pushing. Don't forget to subscribe and all the good stuff and like and whatever. And bye bye.